I really, really appreciate everybody. I'll give a few remarks about some of my work, and then we'll turn the rest of the time over to our very special guest, Chasten Buttigieg. And I really want to thank everybody on a beautiful Thursday, June night here to be on yet another Zoom. And I really hope that this is your last Zoom of the season. But I also want to thank my host committee for putting this Zoom together for this event this evening, our Pride Month celebration. That's the Michigan Democratic Party LGBTQ and Allies Caucus, the Unity Fund PAC, Marlene Davis and Gail Barber, Dave Garcia, as the aforementioned and the Honorable John Hoadley, Howard Israel and Henry Grix, Mira Jordan, Aaron Knott, Mark Lachey and Brian Hoffman, Rachel Lasser, Alex Manuel, Washtenaw County Commissioner Jason Morgan, Jim Murray and Julian Diaz, Michael Rawadi and Ian Holtz, Jeff Schroeder, Pleasant Ridge Commissioner Brett Scott, Amanda Shelton, Jan Stevenson and Susan Horowitz, Buzz Thomas, who charted a path for me. And I am so appreciative of everything that Buzz Thomas had to endure so that I could be in the seat that I'm holding today. And Daniel Vanderlei, of course, Trevor Thomas, and Christopher Worth. So, well, happy Pride Month, everybody. And I'm sure that you've heard, as we talked about on this Zoom, that for the very first time, the Michigan legislature recognized LGBTQ Pride Month with the passage of my Senate resolution last week. And when the Republican majority finally relented to approve this resolution's adoption, I was asked by a lot of reporters, how does it feel? What does this resolution mean to you and to the community? What is Pride Month all about? And, the struggle to get this resolution adopted is emblematic of what LGBTQ people in this state and this country face every single day. And I'm looking at John Hoadley's screen right now because when we were elected, we were only the second and third only openly gay members of the Michigan legislature when we came into the state house in 2015. And every year, every June, we put forward this resolution to declare June as Pride Month. And every year, the Republicans sent it to committee so that they could kill it by never taking it up for a hearing. So we faced every roadblock, every hurdle, every excuse for it not to be adopted. And I heard terrible things from my Republican colleagues, including from the Republican leader who said that our resolution was akin to promoting social reengineering. We heard ridiculous things too. One year, the Speaker of the House said, well, the reason we're not passing it is because it's being vetted in committee and we just don't have enough time in June to give it a committee hearing before June runs out. So John and I said, fine. The next year we introduced the June as Pride Month resolution in January. And of course it wasn't adopted that year either. As LGBTQ people, we know that's the kind of nonsense that we face in our everyday lives. Everything from dismissal to outright discrimination. So last year, in June of 2020, it was a tense month for all of us in the aftermath of George Floyd's murder and the lead into the Black Lives Matter movement. And we know all these movements are intersectional. Queer people of color, trans people of color face disproportionate barriers, hate, and violence. So up until 2020, our resolution was basically, yay, diversity, happy Pride Month. And John and I just didn't feel that was appropriate text for our resolution into June of 2020. So we strengthened it and we added in the roots of the modern LGBTQ rights movement, naming Marsha P. Johnson and queer people at Stonewall, protesting the over-policing of their community in our resolution. And in the midst of the pandemic we were facing, we added in recognition of the epidemic that our community has suffered through with the slow and insufficient government response to HIV and AIDS. We talked about the rights that were fought for and won, including the Obergefell decision on marriage equality. So again, we introduced these resolutions in the House and the Senate, where I'm the only LGBTQ voice. And I spent a month asking for its passage on the Senate floor. I told my colleagues, I have spent years voting for resolutions, their resolutions of much lesser consequence. including supporting October as Apple Month. That was adopted, no problem. July is Craft Beer Month, a week in June as Pollinator Week, and a day in June as Dairy Awareness Day. So if you're aware of dairy, you can thank the Michigan Republicans for bringing that forward to all of us. So the last day, Chasten's laughing at that one. I hope you were aware of dairy.
I have never heard of dairy, and I'm so grateful.
Well, don't worry, there's a resolution for that. So the last day of session in June last year, when they refused to take my Pride Month resolution up, but they suspended the rules to immediately consider the July as Craft Beer Month resolution, I caused a little scene that went viral. Our community has a little flair for the dramatics. So I spoke forcefully and satirically in support of this Craft Beer Month resolution. And then I stormed out of the Senate chamber and slammed the door behind me. And I think that moment held a mirror up to the Senate and our priorities. I already had wonderful Democratic colleagues supporting our fight for recognition and dignity. Some of them are on the Zoom. I know that our Senate minority leader, I wish he was our Senate majority leader. Our Senate minority leader, Jim Ananich, is here. I saw Stephanie Chang is on the Zoom. Winnie Brinks is on the Zoom. I hope I didn't miss anybody. I'll go through the participants and see. But we have wonderful Democratic allies. And they recognize that we contribute culturally and civically and economically to the state of Michigan. But that moment really compelled a few Republicans to get on board with Pride Month too. And this year, they passed the resolution for the very first time, the strengthened version of it too. And it's one of the very first times that the legislature has even affirmed and acknowledged the LGBTQ community in the state of Michigan. So I really do believe in this Harvey Milk quote that coming out is the most political thing you can do. Come out to your parents, come out to your relatives, friends, neighbors, coworkers, where you shop and where you eat, to break down the myths, destroy the lies and distortions for your sake and for their sake. So I work with my Republican colleagues on issues like housing, on government ethics, on criminal justice reform, on economic development, and I'm gay. They kind of realize we're not so different from one another. And you know that our community is not asking for more than anything that anybody else has, but we're not going to accept anything less than equal protection under the law. So each year, to that end, we introduce legislation to protect our LGBTQ community from discrimination by proposing changes to Michigan's Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act, which would protect our community from discrimination, full discrimination in employment, in housing, and in publicly available services. And this year, I introduced Senate Bill 208 alongside all of our Democratic colleagues in the Senate as co-sponsors. And for the very first time this year, we have Republican co-sponsors on our efforts in the Senate and House. And you know that there is a ballot proposal moving to achieve the same goals. We're pushing for those 500,000 signatures to be certified by the Board of Canvassers. And add to all of this the Bostock decision from last year, when the conservative Supreme Court, no less, ruled that LGBTQ individuals are protected under federal law in employment discrimination, which was a victory owed in part to the late Amy Stevens, a transgender Michigan woman who was a plaintiff in this case. So it feels like we have a lot of momentum. It feels like we have a lot to celebrate. But don't forget, Pride did not start as a celebration. It started as a liberation against hardships, shame, and embarrassment that our community has faced. And sure enough, as I introduced Senate Bill 208 to amend the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act, 10 bills later, Republican extremists responded with Senate Bill 218 to attack the trans community and essentially ban trans youth from playing school sports. And just last week, it was announced that a conservative group with shadowy donors boosted by a high-powered law firm is challenging those 500,000 Elliott Larson petition signatures in court, thereby silencing the will of the state of Michigan, the overwhelming majority of our state who support our rights. LGBTQ people just want to exist without judgment and discrimination and be left alone about our sexual orientation and gender identity. But we don't have the privilege of being left alone about it because LGBTQ people have to be activists. We have to be political. We don't have any other choice. And that activism has formed a community about which we are proud. And that's what Pride Month means to me. So I need you to get political. I need you to get active. I'm running for re-election to continue this advocacy in the state Senate to ensure our community will be represented in places where decisions about us are being made. And your support tonight is going to help me wage that re-election campaign. And there's a lot of unknowns with the drawing of new lines, but you know that our area will be a safe Democratic area. I just need to emerge from that Democratic primary in 2022. But more importantly is the general election in November of 2022. I am so sick of having to ask for permission from Republicans in the majority just to exist, let alone pass meaningful legislation that would enhance the lives of our community and other vulnerable, underserved communities in the state of Michigan. We have to take back the state Senate, which has been in Republican control my entire life. And this is our best shot in a generation to elect a Democratic majority, especially now with the fair drawing of these lines. So I'm going to be co-chairing our Senate Democratic campaign efforts to ensure that candidates are competitive in every district in the state, including outstate in West Michigan, in Northern Michigan. This is my segue, where our special guest hails from. I'm trying to recruit him as a state Senate candidate in Northern Michigan, as Chasten is a native. There's a lot of movement of applause in that. As Chasten is a native of Traverse City, he is a teacher, he is an author, and he has a new book out titled I Have Something to Tell You, about his life growing up gay in Northern Michigan. So I want to kick it over to my friend Chasten, who is celebrating his birthday this Pride Month. And I know this because we share a birthday on June 23rd. Chasten, I really appreciate your support of this event and our LGBTQ community here in Michigan, and take it away.
Oh man, well, thanks so much, and thanks for having me. But Jeremy, thank you for being who you are. I mean, I'm glad to take a little time out of my day to, I don't know, talk about the dogs in DC or whatever everybody wants to talk about tonight. But I got to tell you, it means so much to me to see you and John in the Michigan State Legislature. And I know what AG Nessel was saying earlier, that we surely didn't think this would happen in our lifetimes. And I can't imagine the amount of lives you're changing and influencing that you don't realize. Every young person in Michigan who hears about you, who sees that you can be gay, but you can also be smart, and you can make a difference, and you can go to the State House or the Senate and make change. When they see you giving those impassioned speeches, when they see you talking about dairy, that was a joke. I was waiting for your face.
It's not even just Dairy Day, Dairy Awareness Day.
I mean, when they hear your awareness of dairy, no, truly. When I grew up in Northern Michigan, I didn't think that, you know, I could stay in Michigan. And so your leadership in the Senate means a lot. And I hope that everyone here tonight gives as much as you can, because it's not only important to have somebody like Jeremy in the Senate getting shit done, but it's also important to have someone like Jeremy there, just so younger kids can look up to him and feel a little bit safer in Michigan. I know that we all can roll our eyes and throw our hands up in the air when Republicans won't even give us a month, and not even just giving you a month, but acknowledging your existence. They literally sent your existence to committee. You weren't asking for anything other than, you know, something that's mostly ceremonial to signal to other people in the state that we support you, we've got your back, we believe in you, and we're happy that you're here. And so when an entire body says no to that, it's really destructive and dangerous. And so I'm really glad that you're there in the Senate, fighting for all of us, not only your representation, but getting everything else done that we really need done in Michigan. So I'm glad to support you. And I'm so happy to see all of these people here tonight who are also supporting you. And now that we are all aware of dairy, I hope we can jump into a nice Q&A. But round of applause for Jeremy, and thank you so much, Jeremy, for everything you're doing. Happy Pride Month, and just a pleasure to be here with you tonight.
Excellent, excellent. So why don't we start with some questions. We're gonna do a Q&A session. I'm gonna lean on Brandon and Kelly. Should we do it in the chat box, or if you just want to raise your hand, maybe we can do just keep your questions brief because we're gonna be respectful of Chasten's time. But if you want to raise your hand, we can call on you. So Roland, you can lead us off, but we'll be brief.
Yes, thank you so much, Chasten, for being here, and thank you, Senator Moss, for leading this discussion. I'm going to be silly for a moment to start us off here. As you heard at the initial start of this conversation, I said I did not have any embarrassing pictures of Senator Moss to post, and people have been emailing me while we've been having this conversation. So I'm just going to drop a silly picture of him painting the side of some building when he was in his 20s.
Cut him off, cut off.
That's all that I have to add. I'll have much more to say to the group at large, obviously, as the election cycle moves forward, but check your chat box for a funny picture of Senator Moss. That's it.
Great. All right. Matthew, you got your hand up next. Matthew Bode.
Hey, thank you. One of the most kind of moving things that as I've watched you online, Senator, is your reaction to the, just being real, the white supremacists who felt like they could be armed inside the state capitol. And one of the things this is a big question, and so answer in the frame that you feel like. Do you feel like the party, as well as the legislature as a whole, I know those are two different things, but how aware do you feel like that the party and then the legislature are aware of the reality of white supremacy in some of the movements that are going on right now to inform legislation, cultural movements? A lot of the anti-LGBTQ is found in the same communities. And what do you think the party is doing or can do to push back against this really incredibly blatant, unapologetic white supremacist movement that seems to be increasing, yes, in the country, but most specifically here in Michigan?
That's a really good question. You know, everything that has really been inflamed nationally started here first in Michigan. The very first COVID protest was in Lansing, Michigan on April 15th. Couldn't even make it from March to April without politicizing this virus. And then, of course, on April 24th, we had one of our colleagues wear a Confederate flag mask on the floor of the state Senate. And that made another international embarrassment coming from the Michigan legislature. And then the infamous day on April 30th, where literally gunmen came into our building to threaten lawmakers to vote to end the crisis, to end the emergency, just a month into it, which we all know we're just now starting to come out. I will give so much credit and take the lead from our fellow senators of color. Every day at the end of Senate session, you can give a statement. You can say anything you want. You have 5 minutes of open mic. And several of our colleagues, including Senator Sylvia Santana and Senator Erica Geis and Senator Marshall Bullock and Senator Adam Ollier, took that space to talk about Black life in America, to talk about you can't just wear a Confederate flag and expect that there's not going to be a response. And to be honest with you, I learned from them in speaking out and being very comfortable in confronting white supremacy heading into June as Pride Month. This was before the horrific murder of George Floyd that they were talking about Black Lives Matter in 2020 on the Senate floor. And obviously, that was even more heightened after May 25th, 2020. And so from that lesson that I learned from our colleagues of color is when I took to the Senate floor to really talk about Pride Month and talk about what it's like to be an LGBTQ person in the Michigan legislature and the state of Michigan as a whole. So communities of color have led the way for all of us to learn a lot and to be comfortable in speaking out about these issues and about white supremacy here in the state of Michigan. And we are a strong Democratic caucus, and I'm proud to serve with all my colleagues. We'll go to Greg Leishman. I see your hands up, and we're gonna mute you.
All right, cool. Hey, Jeremy, congratulations on all your success and continued doing the right thing for everybody. We support you and love you, and we'll always fight for you. So go get them, Senator.
Appreciate you.
Have a question for Chasten. What is your Secret Service code name?
This is really funny. I don't have one. And you learn a lot about how low on the totem pole you are as a spouse. And this is really funny. I actually just asked this question in the car the other day. Pete tells me to not talk to them. I'm not supposed to distract them. And I said, excuse me, I've noticed that you guys keep referring to Pete as this name. What is my name? And the guy turns around and he's just like, you don't have one, sir. Like, thank you. Am I just spouse? I'm literally sometimes +1 and I'm sometimes spouse. So maybe that'll be the title of my next book.
I'm just spouse.
I'm just spouse. Yeah.
We'll go next to Washtenaw County Commissioner, my friend, somebody who's going to be in this elected space for a long time to come, Jason Morgan.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Is that a good enough plug for you?
That's a great plug. I appreciate it, and thank you. I have one, Chasten, you are just such a phenomenal partner to Pete, which I think is so incredibly important as an out elected official myself, or really anybody in elected office. It's so important to have a partner at your side that can survive the craziness that goes along with that. But I'm really curious about what you're up to in DC. You have a book and I assume a life of your own outside of sharing a last name with Pete, but what are you up to?
I appreciate that. Yeah, things are a little different now. I left teaching to jump on the presidential campaign. And then when our campaign ended, I felt like, we were in limbo. We didn't really know what was going to happen with Pete. So I handled the selling of a house, moving of a house. We're now in a very small 1-bedroom apartment. The office extends to about where the screen ends, and then it's the bedroom. So for the first month we were here, this bedroom office was the Department of Transportation. So I have, we are settled, and I feel like I can check off all of those boxes. We're here. I feel like I finally got my husband off to work. And I don't know, the book is my full-time job right now. I'm adapting it for young readers, which I think is really important. I'm actually really excited about adapting it for young readers. I wish I would have had a book like that growing up. And beyond that, I still kind of have these pinch me moments where this platform is just remarkable to have. It's such a privilege to have this platform that people respond to your emails and they come to your events and they buy your book, and it's just very weird sometimes. And I want to make sure that I use it for good, which is why when Jeremy called, I immediately said yes. Not only because I love Michigan, I just love everything that Jeremy's doing there. And that's really important to me too. Pete can't do a lot now that he's in the cabinet. And so I want to make sure that I use this opportunity that we have to then extend that privilege and honor to other people. And I'm trying to figure that out right now. Besides, helping candidates that I support and believe in, I'm trying to figure out what's next for me. And I appreciate you thinking of me. Right now, I'm trying to get 2 dogs adjusted to DC and write a book, and then we'll see what happens beyond that.
We'll lock in our last 3 hands that are up. If you can make your questions succinct so that we're respectful of time. First, I see Zach Herman.
Hold on.
We hear you.
All right. Hey there. Hey,
Hi.
Chasten.
Howdy.
So I just wanted to say, this is more of a comment than a question. I'm a teacher in Detroit, and I just wanted to say, I read your book in a day.
Oh my gosh.
I think you are an incredible voice for LGBTQIA youth and advocates and adults. And I just wanted to thank you. And I actually met you in South Bend at the kickoff. We got there
awesome.
we got there hours and hours early. And I caught the worst cold I've ever had, but it was great being there.
Me too.
So I just wanted to thank you and wish you and Pete the best.
Oh, Zach, that's so kind of you. And thank you for your service as a teacher.
Yeah, no, it's my calling. It's my passion.
Yeah, you just know, it just clicks, right? I'm glad you're in the classroom, and thanks for your support.
Thank you. Keep up the good work and write another book. I need more for the classroom library.
I'll try my best.
All right.
He's reading them in a day, so you got to keep churning them out. We'll go next to Trevor Thomas, who has been on the front lines in this fight on the other end. We've been introducing legislation in the legislature to amend Elliott Larson. Trevor's been leading a ballot campaign to achieve the same goals. So Trevor, go ahead.
Oh, thank you so much, Senator. And Chasten, my question is nothing to do with LGBT equality. It's that my parents decided to live full-time in Traverse City 20 years ago. And it was the buzz of town that you might have purchased property up there. And so how often do you get to Traverse City? I'm choosing to work from home in Traverse City, so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You know, my whole family lives, most of my family's in Traverse City. I got a lot of family in the Uke near Baraga. And Pete doesn't have a lot of family in the States. It's just his mom. And when we left South Bend, she pieced out. She left South Bend. And so we felt like we should, you know, have a home base where our family is. And I knew it was the buzz around town there for a long time. And people would stop us, and you know how Midwesterners can be, very kind and invasive at the same time. But I love it. I never thought I'd move back to Traverse City. I never thought I would have a house there. I never thought I'd want to live 10 minutes down the road from my parents. But I love having that escape. I actually left DC for a little bit when we were quarantined in this little apartment. And spent a lot of time there during the election. So I did a lot of Biden events up there, hosted the First Lady when she came through with the governor. That was very cool. I actually had lunch with the governor the day after those folks threatened to kidnap her. And I showed up very early to the lunch because I wanted to make sure that I was on time, and she was already there. And I sat down next to her and I was like, should you be here? And she was like, we got shit to do. And that's why I love her. She's great. So I love coming home. I love being in Michigan, and I love being surrounded by Midwesterners. So I try to go back as much as I can. DC is a very different mentality. And it's not what I'm used to. But I'm glad that we have the spot in Traverse City, and I'm glad that we have that opportunity to kind of plant some peat roots in Michigan. My roots are already there, but I love making time to get home. Whereabouts are you in Traverse City?
Oh, we got to mute Trevor.
You can just use your hand. No, I'm just kidding.
There you go.
So if you take M37 down about 30 minutes before you get to 55, they're in the woods essentially. And
great.
You're the closest mire. So that is the indicator of how rural it can be.
That's great. Well, maybe I'll see you there sometime.
We'll close out our question with my Hazel Park City Councilman, Mike McFall, and it's also a good time to also introduce Southfield City Councilman Jason Hoskins, and I mentioned my Senate colleagues have joined us on the Zoom as well. State Senate Minority Leader Jim Ananick, State Senator Stephanie Chang, State Senator Winnie Brinks. I hope I didn't miss anybody. Judge Jay Cunningham, of course. Pleasant Ridge City Commissioner Brett Scott. Appreciate all of you taking the time out. We'll end with Mike. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks, Jeremy. Hello, everyone from Hazel Park. Glad to see everybody. I just wanted to ask a quick question. As an openly gay me and myself, I grew up in the Flint area, was not very gay friendly. And so I was just curious what it was like for you when you were growing up here in Michigan. And I'd like to hear a little bit more about your experience here.
Yeah. I've been going on the news a lot this past week talking about the Equality Act and try to pepper in a little background. I don't know if you saw the GOP chairwoman put out a statement saying that wishing everyone a happy Pride, and saying that, the GOP was committed to fairness to the LGBTQ community while also making space for people with deeply held religious beliefs, which we know is just a cloak for homophobia and hate, because it's not about religion, it's about certain types of religious people who want to deny us our civil rights, and who seek to hurt us, harm our community. When I grew up in Traverse City, my family lives about 20 minutes outside of Traverse City. I was a 4-H boy. I spent every summer fishing in the UP, in my uncle's cabin. Like no electricity, no running water. Like dad takes you out there to like teach you how to shoot a gun and like gut a fish. And it was just like a very roughneck childhood. My parents meant well. They were really lovely parents, and everything's great with them now. But I went to church. I went to CCD and youth group, and learned from my church at a young age that gays were the devil. You had to look out for the gays. And everything I was learning, in 4-H, a very roughneck setting, was very macho group of young boys. And I just spent 18 years of my life learning that that thing inside of me that I knew was there was gross, and it was twisted, and it was wrong, and it was a sin. And I spent 18 years of my life thinking that I was a mistake and I was broken. I didn't know any gay people. The only thing I'd ever heard about, gays was AIDS. Everything was bad. If you were gay, then you had AIDS. Ellen was the first person that I knew was gay, and then Will and Grace happened, but it seemed like you could maybe be gay and be funny, but you had to be in like Los Angeles. And then it also was like, are we laughing at them? Or are we laughing with them? So I was like very scared to laugh at Ellen's jokes or like watch Will and Grace in the same room as my parents. And so I ran away from home when I came out, not because my parents were scary, but because I learned that I was what was wrong. And I thought I would, just bring shame to my family, and that they would be so disappointed and embarrassed of me, which obviously wasn't the case. So a few months after I ran away from home, my mom called me back. They had learned that I was sleeping in my car, and they didn't want me sleeping in my car. And we had to have a lot of hard conversations about what it meant to be gay, and we still do up in Traverse City and the surrounding area. It means so much to me that we have pride in Traverse City. There are these beautiful up north pride signs up there, and when Pete and I got that house, I went downtown the first week we were there and bought one and put it at the end of our driveway, because we live outside the city. If you're listening, Trevor, I won't give you the address, but we live outside the city. We're outside the city limits, and the neighbor up the road has about 5 Trump flags in his yard. And little symbols like that mean so much. It's not just about saying Happy Pride. It's a signal of hope, right? Sometimes it's a beacon of hope to people, and it means a lot to me now that we can be part of that change. But growing up there, I didn't see anyone like Jeremy Moss. I didn't know about anyone at the state house or in the state senate, or I didn't know that you could do anything with your life besides die if you were gay. And I'm glad things are changing, and that's why. I guess beautiful ending here. It's why it's so important that we have people like Jeremy in the state senate, because there's still so many young people who question whether or not that they can exist safely in places like Northern Michigan. I went back to speak at my high school on the presidential campaign to like 250 apathetic high schoolers. But there's always those few kids, right, in the room that are all ears. And I met with the GSA afterwards, and I couldn't believe that my high school had a gay straight alliance, very, very small gay straight alliance. But the fact that kids now feel safe enough to come out means things are changing. And while it wasn't easy for me, I hope that it continuously gets better for the next generation. And so I hope that Jeremy is there for a long time, and then we get you some backup. Send some more queers to Lansing, because no matter where you are in Michigan, it just shouldn't matter. We shouldn't have to be begging the other side of the aisle to acknowledge our existence, like Jeremy's been having to do. And I will not cry, so I will end there. But I'm so grateful, Jeremy. I really am. It means a lot when I come home to know that there are people like you there, who are not only fighting all the good fights, fixing the damn roads, but you're also inspiring a lot of people too. And for that, very grateful. It's been a pleasure to be with all of you tonight. Thank you for making it just a little bit safer, a little bit better, and a little more prideful in Michigan. And I'll end there. So Jeremy, thanks so much. And everybody on the call, thanks so much. Please give a little bit more. It's Pride Month, so give a little bit more than that. And with that, I hope I see you around the mitten, and hope everyone has a good night.
We appreciate you, Chasten, so much. Chasten's been doing the rounds of media, as he's mentioned, advocating for our community on a national level, and to bring that Michigan perspective nationally means so much to us back home. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you. I do want to acknowledge a few other people. First of all, Brandon Hines and Kelly Lowndes have helped me to pull off this Zoom